All right, man, peace. So for you brothers that follow the NBA, you know that the Milwaukee Bucks have gotten off to quite a fast start. And it should not be that much of a surprise because their new coach, Mike Budenholzer, is known for being a coach that can turn your team around. And he reminds me a lot of a coach that many of you brothers who watched basketball back in the 1990s will remember by the name of Rick Adelman. Rick Adelman is one of those coaches, similar to a George Karl or Lenny Wilkins, that if he takes over control of your team, you're going to become very competitive very quickly. You just probably won't ever win a championship with those coaches as your head coach if there's a great team around, because they're not truly championship level coaches. They were just coaches that could take you to the next level of your development. So that's going to be the litmus test for Mr. Mike Budenholzer, whether or not he can lift up the Milwaukee Bucks to transcend over the Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. Well, Milwaukee shocked the world last night when they defeated the Golden State Warriors in dominant fashion. Not only were they able to defeat the Golden State Warriors, but once again, Steph Curry went down with an injury that seemingly will have him out for at least a couple of games. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
All right, let's talk some hopes, everybody. So the Bucks are really, really good. Knocking off the Warriors, and not such good news here for Steph Curry. As you just heard, he's getting an MRI today with the groin issue. How concerning is this, Stephen A? I know how loaded this team is, but if he has to miss a lot of time.
Zero concern.
I agree. The concern for the Warriors is not going to be the regular season. The real concern is going to be for Steph Curry because he clearly has MVP aspirations. So he needs to come back as soon as possible before one of these other players in the NBA takes his spot. Because as of right now, Joel Embiid is trending upward. You have Kawhi Leonard, who at some point over the course of this season is going to start playing more games. He's going to be trending upward. You also have Anthony Davis, who may suddenly make a comeback as well. So just looking at how Steph Curry has been so focused over the course of the early part of this regular season, it's very clear that one of his goals is to be the regular season MVP for this year. So that to me is going to be the only issue in regards to his injury, is how soon he comes back fully healthy to reclaim the spot that he's pretty much had over the course of these first 10 or 11 games as the best player in the NBA for this regular season.
Zero.
Man
bag of shells, as Ralph Cramden was saying on Honeymoon, is man bag of shells. It really means absolutely nothing, ladies and gentlemen. You know what Steph Curry getting hurt?
This dude Curry jumped up in the air grabbing his rod. Man, look like Michael Jackson.
Get hurt 10 games into the season means
What does it mean?
he's going to get rest where come playoff time he'll be fresh. That's all it means. That's all it means. I mean, who's the number 2 seed in the Western Conference that's going to really threaten them? Nobody. Anybody that's a...
Well, remember, we don't exactly expect the Denver Nuggets to continue on playing as well as they've been playing. But they are, as of right now, I believe their record is something like 9-1 or 10-1 or 10-2. So they're right there with the Warriors. And we don't truly expect the Houston Rockets to continue to play as poorly as they played, even though they don't look like a team that's playing badly. They look like a team that's just not that good. I've watched the Rockets a couple of games. They look like a team that's just not that good.
The real threat to them is in the East, in Boston and Toronto, which really is secondary because you're talking about who can push them to 6 or 7 games. It's absolutely, positively nothing to worry about. Not to mention this one fit. Kevin Durant is one of the top 3 players on the planet. I don't know about that. That's how I feel.
Let me say this very quickly before Max Kellerman jumps in. I neglected to mention GIANNIS as a player who could be taking Steph Curry's spot as a potential MVP candidate. So Curry is going to want to come back as soon as possible.
On the planet Earth, Kevin Durant, this is why you're there, to spell for somebody else. They spell for each other. It's nothing to worry about whatsoever. Zero.
Kevin Durant, I would definitely put him amongst the top 3 players in the NBA right now. The issue with Kevin Durant, once again, is that he's not an alpha. Now, Giannis Antetokounmpo is an alpha. And Giannis outplayed Kevin in last night's game. I'm not saying that Giannis is necessarily a better player than Kevin Durant. But when it comes to overall tenacity and what he brings to the table, just looking at Giannis's physique, he spent more time the last 2 off seasons working on his physique than Kevin Durant has spent his entire career. And I think that that's a reflection of his outlook. When people get their body in the level of physical conditioning that Giannis clearly has his body, at the very least from a musculature perspective, he expects to be the leader. Kevin Durant is in great physical condition to run up and down the basketball court and in regards to executing his skills. But he clearly has never gotten in the gym long enough to try to improve his overall musculature so that he does not get beat up on the basketball court. And that's the reason why he's had such hard times in the NBA, especially in the conference final round when it comes to facing teams that are very physical in years past, like the Memphis Grizzlies or even the Houston Rockets at certain points in that series last year. So we'll see. Right now, Giannis is nipping on his heels. What's interesting is that ESPN had an NBA ranking show where they basically listed all the great players in the NBA in order, and there was a big dispute over Kevin Durant and Giannis because basically they were in a relative tie in regards to how ESPN appraised how great a player they were in this current NBA.
Kevin Durant's a beast, but this is a world with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Greek Freak, who was doing it last night. Let me tell you something. The number one acquisition in the offseason for any team was LeBron James to the Lakers because he's the best in the world. Number two offseason acquisition was Buttonholzer.
I'm not quite sure I agree with that, Max Kellerman. I would say that the number two acquisition overall has been Mr. Kawhi Leonard. And to be quite frank with you, before the season's out, Kawhi may be the number one acquisition in the NBA this past offseason.
Coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, who is getting these guys wide open looks, and he has an MVP caliber player on the team. The thing, what Stephen A said is right. I've been saying it since preseason. The only threat to the Warriors are in the East, two teams. The Celtics, who better get things together, right? You know, you can see
they
it
will.
there.
They will.
And the
I like the Celtics, but right now they look a little light in the ass. What I mean by that, they don't quite have the roster to threaten Golden State in the way that Golden State needs to be threatened, and that's in the front court. They need some beefy guys who can play in the front court. Now you have Al Horford, you have Marcus Morris. I'm not quite sure how well that's going to translate in the finals should the Celtics be fortunate enough to get there. Now, I saw the Celtics defeat the Milwaukee Bucks a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week or so ago on television. That's going to be a very good playoff series should they match up. Once again, this season's NBA playoffs is going to be very, very memorable, especially from the second round onward, because I expect to see the Boston Celtics, the Toronto Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Philadelphia 76ers squaring off in the second round in the East. The Eastern playoffs from the second round onward are going to be as compelling as the Western Conference playoffs.
The Raptors, those are the threats to them. Maybe the Bucks. I mean, we got to see what happens. That is a dangerous team. Meantime, Golden State sees what happens. Everyone's one injury away. In this case, too, because it was Draymond also who wasn't playing. But any team, I don't care how good you are, you lose the engine that makes your team go, you can still compete. But without Steph Curry, that's not a championship team. They better let this injury...
I agree. This notion, and I heard somebody else say this, oh, the Warriors could lose Steph Curry, they'll still be the favorites to win the NBA championship. I don't agree with that at all. The Warriors are a team, they need all hands on deck, believe it or not. Because this season is not going to be an easy run in the playoffs. They're not going to run into a Cleveland Cavaliers team that has very low overall team basketball IQ and is just being led by a wonderkin like a LeBron James. They're not going to meet up with a team like that in the finals. When they get to the finals, should they get there, they're going to be facing off against a team that's going to be playing a lot like them. It's going to be younger, have a long wingspan. That's what we see from Milwaukee. That's what we see from Boston. And that's what we see from Toronto. The NBA Finals this year is going to be very, very competitive.
Injury heal right. It's a groin injury, basically. That could take 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Because you rush him back and all of a sudden it's a nagging injury all year. That could be a problem, Rick.
Yeah, well, I've known the Curry family forever. Dylan and I have been close friends, and I was probably there when Steph was born. He is phenomenal. They didn't see this coming, I don't think, when they drafted him, but it's unbelievable.
Changed the league?
Yeah.
I disagree with Stephen A. but I think losing him right now, last night, the Bucks really looked good against them. And I'm not sure the Bucks are, going to prevail, but
I agree with the Nature Boy from this standpoint. I think that the Bucks are a lot better than people thought they were going to be, especially myself. I also think that the Golden State Warriors took them a little lightly. The Bucks were just coming off of a loss against the Portland Trailblazers. I think that Golden State thought that Milwaukee was going to come into Golden State, into Oracle. They were going to put one of those 20-4 runs on Milwaukee, and the Bucks were just going to give up, and that run never came. Pretty much from the first quarter onward, Milwaukee had a lead that started out at about 2 and then exploded to about 15 before the half, and they never looked back. Beyond that, Curry never looked right for the entire game, even before the quote-unquote adductor strain. All throughout the first and second quarter, he was throwing up bricks. He did not look right for that entire game. So I'm not sure if the injury that he suffered last night was something that originally occurred before the game and then got aggravated during the game or worsened during the game, or it was something that happened during the game. But he did not look right that entire game.
I think that this year, because of all the talent that moved, if you moved around, LeBron, being in LA, of course, I'm not sure if that's going to make it. I want it to work out like you predict, but I think every team needs all these guys to play. I mean, that's my strong point in some of them.
I agree with you, sir. There's not a team in the NBA right now who could lose one of its top 2 players and say, we still have a viable opportunity to win an NBA championship, including the Warriors. If the Warriors lose KD or Steph, I would not make them a lock to win the championship. I think that if there was one player that they could lose and still be partially viable, or maybe still be the favorite to win a championship, it would be if they lost Kevin Durant and just had Curry. Because then they could kind of try to go back to 2016 mode in the regular season, wait for DeMarcus to come back, and then go from there. But if they lost Curry, no way. Because Kevin Durant is not an alpha. Never has been, never will be.
On LeBron James, he plays. He doesn't get hurt.
Nature boy, let me tell you why you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. I watched you for years, and I know you give major props to the WWE because they are the creme de la creme. We all get that. All right? I remember when NWA as well.
Yep.
I remember the Road Warriors. I remember the Four Horsemen, when On and the Crew. Don't get me wrong. I got all of this stuff. I grew up watching
Where he
stuff.
gets his inspiration
Let me break something down to you. You know how many times I watched you let dudes come in the ring and throw their best stuff at you thinking they had you beat. You understand? And then one mistake made them succumb to the finger 4-leg lock. Lights out. You understand? Whoa! Because here's what this comes down to, all right? This is what you got to understand. The Golden State Warriors on the court, you can't. I know that Budenholzer is a plus, but don't get me wrong. You know what is happening right now with Budenholzer and the Milwaukee Bucks? As good as they are, as surreal as the Greek Freak is, you're sitting back and saying, okay, it's early in the season. Let's figure out what they're throwing at us.
I totally agree with you, Stephen A. Smith, and that's a very good point. Right now, we're early in the season, and teams are getting accustomed to how the Milwaukee Bucks play. But let it be known, the Milwaukee Bucks were a playoff team last year. They were a playoff team the year before that. So it's not like they were a team that only won 30 games last year and they're off to a fast start like the Sacramento Kings or somebody like that. They were a team that were winning in the mid-40s to upper 40s in games the last 2 years. So now with Budenholzer, a coach who was able to lead the Atlanta Hawks to 60-plus wins a couple of years ago, I expect them to be there until the end. I expect the Milwaukee Bucks to win somewhere around 53 to 54 games, assuming that GIANNIS stays healthy for the entire season.
Because we haven't seen this from them before. And as the season progresses, they will not get open shots as the season wanes.
By the way, your analogy is let me tell you the better one. Rick Flick.
Stephen A. Smith claims that the Milwaukee Bucks will not get open shots as the season wanes. Well, the NBA today is not known for its defense. So they're going to face more than enough teams that are going to give them open shots.
Player, right? This is not the NFL where it's next man up. You might, if there's a show coming to your town and Ric Flair is the headliner and Ric Flair can't go, he's got pneumonia or he's got the flu or something, right? You might want to say next guy up and you might want to try to win that day, win that crowd. But you can't just lose a Ric Flair and still expect the same product, right? That's like the Warriors losing Steph Curry.
Thank you, but I guarantee you that Ric Flair's name was on the sign. Pneumonia or not, I was there. when you work for the WWE,
Ric Flair looked like he drank so much alcohol when he was young. He probably had not had a drink for the last 15 years, and he's still drunk as hell.
Your name's on the marquee.
There's no groin injury, right?
You're going to make a note. I've been.
This is today's NBA, though. They find an excuse to take off 15 games a year.
Rick, is that what you mean about LeBron James not missing time? Like, he'll play through the injury? I mean, Steph's a tough guy, actually, but is that what you're talking about?
Of course, LeBron James is a mutant. Everybody knows that. People say it, and they say it half jokingly, because I believe that there is a suspicion, especially amongst those in the entertainment industry that are in the know when it comes to Monarch athletes, that LeBron James is a little something different. Like, for example, most of the top golfers over the past 20 years, they know about Tiger Woods. They know that Tiger Woods is a Monarch athlete, that he's Monarch programmed, but they have to play along.
It's a gift. I mean, like the Hunter Triple H will say, I got the gene. I mean, to be what I've been through my lifetime and to still be healthy and moving around and no arthritis, that's a miracle. LeBron has got this gift and he stays healthy. And, I hear you say that he takes early part of the year off, doesn't play defense and that, but just the fact that he's out.
Well, LeBron James does not play defense at any part of the season. Not the regular season, the All-Star game, the postseason. There's no part of the season where that man plays defense anymore.
He's on the court every night. The arena's sold out. People, if he doesn't play, I want my money back if I'm in an opposing arena.
And Kareem,
right?
Same thing, by the way. And then when you needed him to, he played defense.
The Nature Boy always shows up and shows out.
Yes.
So does our servicemen and servicewomen every single day, early in the morning to late at night.
365.
Appreciate you. No days off. When we come back here.
But anyway, we'll see what happens with Steph Curry and this injury. We're also going to see how things transpire for the Milwaukee Bucks. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, his name will certainly be bandied about for the regular season MVP over the course of this season. And I'm sure that if the NBA had their druthers, Giannis Antetokounmpo or Joel Embiid or Anthony Davis would get that award because, number one, they would be young players who've never gotten the award before. Number two, they'd be proverbial big men. I mean, Giannis is a big man by height, but he's not really considered a quote-unquote big man. He's almost like a small forward who's about 4 inches taller than he should be, but he's so diverse in what he brings to the table. Point being is this. The NBA wants to spread around the regular season MVP award liberally, but if Curry's going to play 75 games and average 32 points a game, they're going to have to give it to him. So we'll see what happens. Peace.